Great, and I'm live. I haven't done a post in perhaps a couple of weeks, and this is for a very good reason. I've been kind of struggling a little bit with deciding what I ought to talk about. And I've been on the horns of this dilemma as to what I want to talk about and what people will understand. And then the penny finally dropped that actually it's because of our hesitancy in the past about failing to speak up when we ought to be speaking up on account of our worries about whether people will comprehend, whether people will engage with what we're saying, and so on and so forth, that we actually found ourselves in this position. There have been many people who have predicted what we're going through right now. But perhaps all too many of them thought there's no point talking about it because people will only kind of shut me up, cut me down, undermine me, think that I'm a tinfoil wearing lunatic, etc. But the truth is, this is where we are. There are two incredibly important possibilities standing right here in front of us in the United Kingdom. One of them is the vaccination of children age 12 plus, which may well roll on to younger children. And the other is the imposition of vaccine passports, which will effectively create a kind of apartheid society in which the vaccinated will have one lifestyle and the unvaccinated will have another lifestyle. And of course, this is a little bit like shooting a moving target on the back of a galloping horse, because our definitions of who is vaccinated and who is not vaccinated will be morphing and changing as we go. Will it be those who've had 2 jabs? Will it be those who've had 2 jabs and 1 booster? Will it be those who've had 2 jabs, 2 boosters, 3 boosters, 4 boosters? What will that be? It's an absolutely movable feast. So here we are. So today I've decided that the thing that's really been on my mind, which is the status of Black people, personally I call them PAO, or people of African origin, in society, and what is going to happen to them as a result of what we've been through in this pandemic. I'm going to post this to my YouTube channel as well, so kindly like, share, particularly comment if you can on what I say, because it enables me to bring you more content. It enables me to understand how we're engaging with each other. And also, if you hit the notifications, you will be told when I've gone online. So here we are. The status of Black people and people of African origin. Now, at the top, I said something about children's vaccination. Now, I didn't know quite what children meant to me till the very real likelihood of the least vulnerable people to this illness being lined up on a routine basis for vaccination. Also using what's called in the United Kingdom the Gillick pathway, people who are 12 years old, they're not eligible to fight for their countries. They're not eligible to buy alcohol. They're not eligible to have sex legally, but they are being given the authority to decide to become vaccinated. And of course, once you're vaccinated, there is no way you can become unvaccinated. So a 12-year-old is going to be given the authority to make a completely life-changing decision. I look at them in the park when I go out for my early morning walks, and two things light me up in there. One, it's the dogs. People are out there with their dogs. The dogs are busy running around chasing their balls and sticks and so on and so forth. They're just full of bees, full of life. Can't help but smile when you see them. And the other people are the little people, the children. And, you look at them, they are full of life and beings and vivacity. And these are people who wake up in the morning and You know, they wake up and they're good to go. I remember mine were like that. They don't need a cup of coffee to think about, what am I going to do today, and so on and so forth. It's like a spring-loaded rocket. They get up, they're good to go. They make life. They bring joy and fun to life for everybody, in my opinion, who is normal. These are the people we are going to be putting at risk by vaccination. And I didn't know how much I cared about children until that possibility hit me, and I thought to myself, this is a bridge we absolutely should not cross as a civilized society. So, and I thought to myself that, how did we get here? How did we actually find ourselves in a position? And by the way, the vaccination isn't the only threat open to children these days. Lots of children are going missing. Increasingly, we're hearing about pedophiles, people who actually find children sexually attractive. We're also hearing about how high within our social circles this predilection for predating sexually on those who are our prime charges, the people for whom we as adults are supposed to give everything to protect. It turns the stomach, but this is all going on. And it makes me think about how over the years and imperceptibly, our perceptions, values, and attitudes have been carefully shaped and controlled. And this is where the situation of Black folk, people of African origin, comes in. One of the biggest projects of those who seek to rule us has been the recognition that we are too many to be ruled. There are very few of them. They come from very few bloodlines. They like to keep their interests closely guarded amongst themselves. And so 7 billion people is a lot to keep in check. Now, one of the oldest ploys in the book to control an enemy that greatly outnumbers you is first to divide them. So, being divided, they cannot be such an effective threat against you. Buddhists actually say that even a person at cross purposes with themselves is destined to wind up in failure. So, disunity of the mass, disunity of our polity, of our people, as a race, as a human race, is the quickest way to destabilize it all, us all. And for a period of hundreds of years, by a drip, drip, drip policy of dehumanization, abuse, and misinformation, and the expunging of histories. Do you know, it's come to be that a hierarchy of race has been established in which the minority race in the world, which is people of European origin, have been set up as the top of the totem pole, and the rest of us have been set up at the bottom of the totem pole. Now, before other people came into the European orbit, or rather, should I say, before the Europeans went to other parts of the world, this situation never existed. Back then, they used to, those who wanted to control the world predated on the European people. And so there was internecine strife between the bloodlines of the various controlling factions throughout Europe. And once they met other people, they just extended the policy into other races. And the Africans seem to have drawn the very, very, very short straw. So there's been the transatlantic slave trade, there's been the genocide in the Congo, there have been constant wars of attrition between different parties in Africa, all created to kind of maintain this perception of a continent that is a basket case. The erstwhile president of the United States called it a continent of shithole countries. Excuse my language, and so on. And actually, what always what always amazed me when I worked as a journalist was that people who go abroad to Africa actually go to seek out the images that pay off the lazy stereotypes that have been created about those parties, so that you would imagine nothing positive could ever come out of that place. Now, if that's the case, would you want such a person as your best buddy? One. Two, would you actually see yourself respecting a person of that background as a co-equal? Unlikely. And so once such a huge chunk of the human race has been torn off from the others, humanity itself is fighting this war of supremacism, eugenics, and control, such that straight away those who would seek to enslave us all have halved their problem. Now, the idea of eugenics, especially social eugenics, is to enable those who are considered superior to flourish, while those who are considered to be a blot on the gene pool of genus Homo sapiens to be slowly fizzled out. Now, this worked very well for a while until the guns got turned back again onto people of European origin. I think it is fair to say that right now, the Australians who are involved in quasi-genocide of the Aboriginal people of Australia, the Americans who went to America, were basically Europeans who went to America and wiped out the natives, the people of Southern America, mostly Hispanic, Portuguese, and so on, who went over there and also had a very, very bad encounter with the natives of those places. These are the people, and of course, all across Europe, these are the people who are now being predated on and destroyed with the loss of their rights, loss of their bodily sovereignty, and this main assault now on their own children. And the irony is, the greed of the governments of these places is such that they've actually cornered the instrument by which that abuse is being shaped and meted out, being the vaccines. What's to be done? I think that the horror of what we're seeing right now leaves us with one lesson. When we come away from this tragedy, from this trajectory rather, of the loss of human rights and the loss of respect for the sovereignty of our bodies, bodily sovereignty, we don't want to go back into that system where we are all being divided so that we can be ruled. The people who are following these policies are typically those with elite so-called educations. And yet, the stupidity, it is the only word, I wish I could find another, the stupidity of people who have been to the most vaunted educational institutions of the world is what is driving this fundamental disrespect of human life. What it means is that their education put garbage in their heads, and as a result, we are harvesting the garbage that's coming out as a result of their government. And the fact that there are one or two token people of African origin chucked in there to just for the optics, like you get one who's running the World Health Organization, you get another who's running the World Trade Organization in the United Kingdom. You've got you've got one in the Department of Business and so on. Doesn't change anything. It doesn't stop the Metropolitan Police predating on and criminalizing young Black people. So we know it's just purely cosmetic. And I can share with you from my own experience that actually, certainly people of my generation, people of a certain age, mostly have only ever been taught to patronize people of African origin. This is unsustainable, although it does deliver to those who would wish to divide and rule us a fantastic vector for our diminution as a total race. Racism is great for oligarchs because it destroys the bonds of human respect, human recognition that enable us to stand together and defend each other in a moment of crisis. So, this is where we are. After we have seen off this threat, this crisis, the first thing that we have to jettison is this philosophy of racial eugenics, put in place purely and simply so we can be divided and be ruled. And of course, the point about anybody who would use such a tactic is that when they start to lose, they turn the tactic on their own people. Take Adolf Hitler. He thought he was creating the master race that was going to create the 1,000-year Reich. And when he started losing the war, he actually turned on his own people and said that, well, look, if you can't live up to my ambitions and aspirations for you, then you don't even deserve to survive. And so he subjected his own people to the carnage of aerial bombardment and killed a lot of other people, still trying to bring him down to heel. All because the people had been enabled with this philosophy of divide and rule based on racial eugenics. It's got to stop. If you want to fight the cabal, if you want to restore human dignity, if you want to protect us all as human beings, if you want to protect our children together, you need to get beyond the perceptions that have been created and the divisions that have been created over hundreds of years so that we can be divided and ruled. And I have to say this frankly now. Do you know what? I don't care if people are a bit embarrassed by it, because traditionally pre-pandemic, what people would do is that if you said anything that was a quarter way truthful, and that didn't kind of go sit there like a little puppy waiting to be patted on the head, like many people of African origin who are professionals that I know, it's the way people behave. People would just ignore it. But we can't ignore it now, because we are at the gates of hell. And we can go this way and walk straight into prison, or we can go this way and claw back our freedoms and protect generations yet unborn from this horror that is going down. Thanks very much for listening. Do share your comments below.